Let's fucking go.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gear Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I'm here to review Marvel's The Thunderbolts. Now the Thunderbolts is, in many ways, as some people have referenced, Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. At least in the comic books, the Thunderbolts are in many ways Marvel's versions of the Suicide Squad. In many ways, the Thunderbolts is literally a group of villains / anti-heroes come together to do a mission, just like the Thunderbolts. But that is pretty much where the two teams separate. As the Thunderbolts, I'd say the Suicide Squad are more or less legit villains, be it with bombs implanted in them, being forced by Amanda Waller to do a thing. Whereas often the Thunderbolts are anti-heroes. They're for the most part. They're not always villains. Often the Thunderbolts are actual just anti-heroes. People who maybe were villains but became good guys. Usually the Thunderbolts they've come together by choice. They weren't forced together. And often it's a team assembled by Thunderbolt Ross or even Zemo. But usually, often than not, the Thunderbolts are anti-heroes. They are actual good good people doing bad things. I mean, one of the more recent Thunderbolts teams was Thaddeus Ross, the Punisher, Deadpool, and Elektra. And I think Venom, Agent Venom, which most of those characters are all anti-heroes. So like that kind of just shows you what the Thunderbolts usually are. So the Thunderbolts are an anti-hero group, whereas the Suicide Squad are a group of bad guys sent out to do a task. And that's pretty much the big difference. Now, the Thunderbolt project has been one of the more confident projects. In recent years, the MCU has had pretty much three types of projects. They've had either ambitious project, they've even had experimental projects like a WandaVision or a Loki, or even an Eternals, or to a lesser extent, Moon Knight and whatnot, where they're exploring different unique things and they're doing things that the MCU's never done before. Because all of those projects are always described as, and even She-Hulk is included in that, as they don't feel like a Marvel show. They don't feel like an MCU project. Or the MCU projects are too ambitious, attempting to do too much, like a Secret Invasion, I'll probably say Quantumania, not Black Panther, even like Captain America, Brave New World, where they're trying to do so much shit. It's so ambitious and it's not as thought out enough. There are just so many things going on that can't be filled out. Just even like a Thor Love and Thunder or a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where they have these ambitious ideas of what they want to do, but it feels not as well thought out, as well planned as previous MCU projects. And the third MCU project you've gotten in phases 4 and 5 are pretty much more classic MCU projects. I'm thinking Shang-Chi, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Guardians 3, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye. Those projects, even Daredevil, those projects are so classic MCU. And what I mean by classic MCU is old MCU phases 1, 2, and 3 followed a very similar formula of main cast or main character who the audience can get behind. The audience feels for, maybe the character's even funny and the audience finds them funny. The audience can get behind these characters. Good to great action sequences and a fairly simple, mostly straightforward story with a meaning / moral of the story that can be relatable to all the audiences. Iron Man 3 was about PTSD. Captain America Winter Soldier was about over surveillance and freedom and fear and how being there for your friends. Guardians of the Galaxy is about found family. You see what I mean? Like that was kind of base level MCU movies where it was a pretty straightforward plot. Sure, there was some twists, maybe, but for the most part, it was a pretty straightforward plot with characters that we enjoyed, fun action, a great message, and not is basically the gist of most of the best MCU films. But Marvel has sort of gotten away from that because they've wanted to explore. I'm actually going to post up a video. There's this guy named Movie Bob, and he kind of posted up his review of the Thunderbolts, but his beginning is totally everything that I've been talking about the MCU. It's phases 4 and 5, or at least phase 4 was supposed to be this experimental, like, let's explore different things, let's do different things. Some of those things worked and some of those things didn't, but the problem is when you're doing this bigger, huge cinematic universe, you can't really afford for shit not to work because everything's connected. So things have just been kind of all scrambled all over the place, with the quality of the projects just kind of swinging, you know, all over the place. Although, contrary to some people, most of the projects have been successful, they have been positively reviewed. It's just there have been more downs because they're just pumping out more products than they ever have before. But I digress about that particular topic. The thing I really want to focus on, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because Thunderbolts is firmly in the classic MCU department. Thunderbolts feels like an MCU movie that could have come out in phase 3. Like, if this movie had come out, like, in the lead up to Infinity War or Endgame, it would have not felt out of place. It feels like that kind of MCU. I remember some movies feel like, I often kind of say that Captain America Brave New World and certain movies like that, like Multiverse of Madness, those movies felt like phase 2 Marvel movies that if they had come out in phase 2 would have probably gotten a little bit more would have probably gotten a lot more love behind them. The Marvels, I do think the Marvels, Captain America Brave New World, and movies like not Thor Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, those movies felt like if they had came out before this new wave, if the MCU had more positivity behind it, I do think those movies would have gotten better reviewed. But this movie, The Thunderbolts, is the first MCU movie in a while that, even more than any other MCU movie I've seen since phases 4 and 5, it felt like classic MCU. It was characters that you like, a fairly simple, straightforward story with a real heart to it, a real moral behind it, a real lesson to be learned from this. This is a movie about depression and about how depression can quite literally drag you and people around you down, and how you can't really overcome depression by yourself. You need help to overcome it. So it has this very base level. At its core, there's something meaningful. There's substance to this movie, which is something that not all MCU, I'll probably say, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. While I love Shang-Chi and other projects, like in terms of the movies, those two movies are the movies that the MCU have made in recent years, and the recent MCU, that have actual, like, a core substance. And this one has one in spades, and it's why it makes it such a great it makes it such a great movie. But the premise of the Thunderbolts is, after all that, Yelena Belova, John Walker, aka the U.S. agent, Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and a few others are sent, Taskmaster 2, are sent to kill each other as Julia Louis-Dreyfus's, I'm gonna just call her Fontaine. I'm not even gonna get into the Allegra. I'm just calling her Allegra or whatever. Del Fontaine, as she made a point in the movie. She is been kind of moving in the background. She's made appearances in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Her first appearance was in that. She showed up like kind of in the post-credit scene in Black Widow. She showed up in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and it was revealed, which is something no one talks about, that she's the ex-wife of Everett Ross. Like, she's been doing shit, and it was also revealed she's the head of the CIA. But apparently, all her shady shit's catching up to her. The Congress wants to fucking, maybe send her ass to jail for all the perhaps experimental shit she's doing. So in a bid to, pretty much sweep all her dirty dealings under the rug, she decides to take out all the agents she's had working for her, including all the projects she was working on, which unfortunately means the death of Yelena, Walker, Ghost, and anyone else involved, including a character named Bob. Now, the fun of this movie is in the cast. First of all, look, Florence Pugh is amazing. Florence Pugh is always going to be amazing as Yelena. She brings such a pathos. She's such a powerhouse of an actress that it like the MCU should feel lucky that they managed to scoop her up to be in roles like this, because she will be a major player going forward in the MCU. I just love Yelena. I love her accent. I love the way she approaches her. And Yelena is going through a very depressing time in her life, as are all the characters. John Walker's going through a very depressing time. You don't learn too much about Ghost, but you get the feeling she's going through some shit. Red Guardian, eventually David Harbour's Red Guardian appears, and you know, he's amazing as always. He's like literally, it's funny, 3 of the characters who made my top favorite MCU characters they introduced list are all in this movie, so that's great. Bucky is here as a stalwart, as he always is, just being kind of this wise man. Although, I will tell you, I'll make a segment video talking about the post-credit scenes. I will tell you, by the time the movie ended, I did get the distinct feeling that Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes is not going to live very long, because from a narrative standpoint, he's pretty much completed all the points that he's supposed to do as a character. Like, there's really not much more to do with Bucky Barnes by the end of this film, but I digress. The action was great, the story was great, and the introduction of, this is not a spoiler because it was in the trailer, the Sentry. Now, the Sentry is a very difficult character to pull off. He is essentially Marvel's Superman, except if he was unstable. The Sentry is this interesting combination of Superman and a little bit of Homelander, in the sense that, like, he was created by the US government to be, you know, the superhero they can control, but at the same time he's dealing with great mental illness. And the Void is an interesting thing, because often in the comics, the Void, which is the Sentry's alter ego, can be like just this evil monster. Although the allegory they use the Void for in this is very similar to a version they use in the comics, and it was very well done. This movie is not only a return to form, it's not a return to form, but like it's classic Marvel in its execution. It's very well shot. It's probably one of the best shot Marvel movies of all time. I will tell you that one. It has a unique look to it. It doesn't look like any other Marvel movie. It isn't shot always like any other Marvel movie. There are some transitions near the end of this film that are straight up some indie shit, okay? There are things that happen, subject matter and whatnot, that it's like, okay, there are parts of this movie that feel like an independent movie. The movie has its faults as well. I do think they rushed through a couple things, but some of that can be excused. But other than the rushing through a couple things, I love the movie. I thought this was a slam dunk by Marvel. It felt confident. It felt like they knew where they were going. If all MCU movies going forward can have this level of dedication to its direction, this level of detail, and this level of heart, I think Marvel will be fine. If they could just focus, laser in on every project like they did on this one. The Thunderbolts gets a 9 out of 10 from me. Loved it. Anyways, thank you guys for coming to Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. I shall be making probably a spoiler review later on, maybe come out by tomorrow. Thank you guys again. See you on the next one.